Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Press Information Bureau, I welcome all of you to this press conference. With the extremely encouraging GDP data dominating media space today, we are privileged and honored to have amidst us the Honorable Finance, Corporate Affairs and Defense Minister, Shri Arun Jaitley ji. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Gracing this occasion is the Minister of State, Independent Charge, Commerce and Industry, and Minister of State, Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji. I extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am. My warm welcome to Dr. Shri Ravi Mathur, Disinvestment Secretary, Dr. G.S. Sandhu, Financial Services Secretary, and Shri Shaktikanta Das, Revenue Secretary. Let me explain briefly the format of today's press conference. Finance Secretary will first make a presentation on the various initiatives of the Ministry during these 3 months, after which the Honorable Finance and Defense Minister will make his opening remarks. Thereafter, the forum will be open for questions and answers. Kindly ask your questions one by one, and before asking, please state your name and that of your organization. May I also request you to kindly switch off your mobiles or keep them in silent mode. Over to Finance Secretary.
Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Minister of State for Finance, and my colleagues and friends from the media. I would be presenting very briefly to you the state of the Indian economy as we see it today. The theme has been, since the new government took charge, to create an environment of growth and stabilization. We are seeing that the enabling environment for doing business has improved considerably. We have seen there is a movement in labor reforms. There is enhanced foreign direct investment in railways and defense. There is also a proposal for enhanced FDI in insurance. There is also some opening up in the construction sector. There is also a committee which has been set up for issues relating to indirect taxation. Infrastructure has been a big emphasis for the government, and therefore a large number of steps have been taken and notified, which include issues relating to infrastructure and real estate business trusts and others. You are all aware that the Government of India has very successfully negotiated the formation of the Brics Bank, which will provide long-term infrastructure financing to infrastructure projects, and a large number of other issues, including financial inclusion, which was recently, very recently, inaugurated by the Honorable Finance Minister. Prime Minister, I'm sorry. The SEBI Act has been passed by the Parliament, and this is going to enable the SEBI to be able to take care of the issues that have been plaguing the small investors in several parts of the country, including the Ponzi schemes. The recent data points to revival in the GDP growth, and you're all aware of that. We had the general expectation that the economy will grow around 5.5%. If you recall, the RBI's prediction has been also around 5.5%, but we have seen much better results. And yesterday, the announcements which have come from the CSO clearly show that the economy is on the path of recovery. We are also seeing growth, very strong rebound in the core sector. We have seen the development which is taking place in projects. There has been greater delegation of power to the road sector. There is also other steps which have been taken for long-term financing through banks. And we are seeing a rebound in this sector. Recently, you have seen that the numbers which have come out yesterday show an immense improvement over the earlier numbers. If you look at the Purchasing Managers Index, which is signaling an expansion in manufacturing, mainly on account of expansion in new orders, we are seeing that there is an upsurge. In fact, if you compare these numbers with the numbers which have recently been announced for China, we see there is a great improvement in the Indian numbers, whereas the China's PMI, the recent PMI has been 51. Our PMI is showing an uptick from the last to 53 in the month of July. Inflation has been an issue, as a matter of great concern to the country. We are seeing there is early sign of moderation on account of several steps that the government has taken, which includes a price stabilization fund and also the steps taken to contain fiscal deficit and to revive growth. And the CPI as well as WPI have shown a trend which is downward, even though there is a slight uptick in the last month. Equity markets have been showing great buoyancy. As we have seen in August 2014, they have reached new heights, and they are continuing to show great confidence in the measures that the government is taking. We will be greatly helped by these numbers when we go for divestment, which should happen in the next 2 to 3 months. And the numbers for divestment which have been given in the budget, we are very confident that we'll get better numbers than that. I will not stand in the way between you and the Finance Minister, so I would now request the Finance Minister to make his opening remarks. Thank you.
When the new government had taken over, I had outlined the priorities of the government. Containing inflation was an important priority. Restarting the growth cycle, rebuilding the investment cycle, and keeping the fiscal deficit at acceptable levels. That was one of the few of the principal objectives which we had stated at that stage. The country was facing a significant challenge. Decision making had considerably slowed down. There was a loss of investor confidence taking place. We were ceasing to be on the investors' agenda. And the mood was significantly low. It is in this backdrop of these challenges, a little over 3 months ago, that we took over. I must concede that the election result itself was a mood changer. And the election result itself resulted in some important developments. after 30 years, you had a single party majority in Parliament. And therefore decision making, including economic decision making, became easier. The new government was clear about the direction in which it is to move. We wanted to expand economic activity, hasten decision making, ease in the doing of business in the country, open up in several significant sectors, expedite decision making, while maintaining the social sector expenditure in most areas. There were no internal issues in the government itself as we've seen in the past. And to all the steps that we in the Finance Ministry had to take, there was a strong Prime Ministerial backing. Both the Honourable Prime Minister and the PMO were fully in support of most of the steps. There was a significant grievance that investors had with regard to certain taxation issues. We needed to convince the larger body of investors, both within and outside, that with the new government there will be no space now for any retrospective legislations on tax. We created a new mechanism for an advance ruling available to even domestic investors above a particular threshold. We created a special mechanism for resolution of tax disputes. The scope for discretions in transfer pricing was narrowed down. There have been several cases where we opened out. Defence and railways were among the most significant ones. We eased the norms as far as real estate and townships were concerned. And we took a firm decision on insurance. I do hope that the insurance amendments will be passed in the next session of Parliament. The raising of the FDI limits in defence has been accompanied by a series of important steps which we took, and this is in my other capacity. We have de-licensed about 53% of the defence manufacturing items, both with regard to transport aircrafts and now yesterday with regard to helicopters. We took important decisions to open the sector to Indian corporates who would obviously with joint ventures endeavor to start manufacturing within the country. this would lead to a new area of manufacturing activity. That is the thrust. And of course, most of our proposals related to infrastructure, increasing manufacturing, giving a fillip to the SME sector, real estate sector. And I think the long-term impact of all these decisions would gradually be felt. And if you look at the impact today, in terms of investment mood, there is a sea change. The international body of investors is also looking at us with great curiosity. And I'm sure we will see the impact of this. There is been by and large a moderation of the inflation. Most sectors are indicating a positive news, and this is in the face of a relatively challenging monsoon this time. But the last 2 days have indicated that it's not yet over. The manufacturing curve has turned. Services are looking up. In the first quarter of this year, a 5.7% growth rate is encouraging. With the long-term impact of all the new initiatives setting in, I'm sure the impact in the coming quarters would be much larger. We have an ambitious disinvestment plan which will roll itself out in the coming days. I have already indicated that the Select Committee will soon start its work on the insurance bill. I am hopeful of its passage in the next session. A significant amount of investment is just waiting in that sector to come in. I've had discussions with the members of the Expenditure Management Commission. They may submit some early recommendations on subsidy rationalization. I have already flagged this issue during the budget debates in Parliament. I am individually discussing with chief ministers and finance ministers of some states which have raised some issues with regard to the GST. and an early development of the constitutional framework is top of the government's agenda. As we've started working in the administration of the new land acquisition law, the states and the center are both realizing the challenges which have stood up. And I am going to discuss with all the major political parties through my colleague, the Rural Development Minister, as to whether some more flexibility could be available. And when I say flexibility, I have specifically in mind a slight enlargement of the exemptions. All I can say is that the government is very clear whether it is our social sector schemes or its other significant decisions surely will be moving in the right direction. And I am optimistic that as more and more decisions in this direction do come, we'll be able to help the economy to grow a little faster. Just one final word on the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana. We had expected a launch with about 1 crore new accounts being opened. As of yesterday afternoon, we had announced that 1.84 new account holders had been added. In fact, the initial desire under the scheme to get themselves enrolled was so high that the whole of yesterday and even today, despite festival in many parts of the country, the enrollments have continued. So what was 1.5 crores day before yesterday and 1.84 yesterday, as of noon today, it has become 214.34. That is 214 lakhs, 2 crore 14 lakhs, 34,000. I in particular compliment the Department of Financial Services and the banks for this very successful initiative that they have taken. I had only so much to say. The rest we can cover in your questions.
But sir, and manufacturing has shown that it's on a revival path. But sir, the food inflation and interest rates are still at risk. Whereas I would also say that the Brent is showing downward trend. You think imported inflation from oil prices will subside? And also, with in the last 4 months, the fiscal deficit data doesn't seem to be very encouraging. Don't you think you are going to push up your borrowing plan and market borrowing plan and disinvestment?
You see, as far as your three parts of your question, food inflation is concerned, this is normally a time where prices of some items, particularly vegetables, etc., become steep. this year a special effort has been made, particularly when the initial onion prices were rising. So from its customary 80 rupees and 100 rupees, it was contained at a relatively early stage. The Department of Food and Consumer Affairs is taking special attention in this regard. Well, yes, last month at one stage, after the Iraq crisis, it looked like the oil prices would go out of control. But they have moderated to a relatively comfort level. And that is why the oil companies have twice announced the price benefit to the consumer by reducing the prices itself. The fiscal deficit figures in the first quarter do not represent the pattern of the whole year. The tax collections, particularly advance taxes, have not yet started coming in. And the first quarter is also burdened with the refunds of the last quarter of the previous year. A combination of these factors doesn't normally make the first quarter fiscal deficit figures as very representative. Over the year, they even themselves out. I had given, when we had fixed in the budget of 4.1% as the fiscal deficit target, I had at that stage said that it's a figure which was fixed in the vote of account of the interim budget by my predecessor. It appears a daunting task, but I accept the challenge and will endeavor to reach it. So what was then accepted as a challenge, I today feel, with the first quarter results, as something which is certainly achievable. My confidence today in that target is much more if this trend were to continue. And normally, manufacturing and others pick up as the year goes by. Schemes which have been sanctioned under the budget get cleared and are implemented.
Hello, sir. I'm Shubham from Cogensis. Just an extension of the question which Shaiji asked. The Finance Secretary in his presentation has mentioned that CPI and WPI have shown a downward trend. Keeping that in mind, when do you see the central bank acting on rates, rather cut them?
Left to myself, I hope very soon. But I'm sure those who decide there have also heard your question.
हर परिवार में 2 अकाउंट खोलने हैं और परसों के कार्यक्रम में प्रधानमंत्री ने पति और पत्नी दोनों को अलग अलग ये 15 करोड़ अकाउंट खोलने की जरूरत है क्या 7.5 करोड़?
देखिए, ये अलग अलग फेजेस में होगा. ये पहला फेज है और ये फेज पहले हमारी इच्छा थी कि अगले वर्ष के 15 अगस्त को 14 अगस्त को पूरा होगा, लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री जी के आग्रह पे उसको 26 जनवरी पूरा किया है. उसमें ये एक अकाउंट है और इसके अगले फेज में इसको हम बढ़ाएंगे.
सर, हम बालकृष्ण फ्रॉम आज तक। आपने कहा कि महंगाई सरकार की सबसे बड़ी प्रायोरिटी थी और उस पर कुछ हद तक काबू पा लिया गया है। मेरा सवाल यह है कि क्या अभी भी महंगाई एक चिंता का कारण है? दूसरा उसी से जुड़ा सवाल यह है कि कितने % के इन्फ्लेशन को आप कंफर्टेबल मानेंगे, और जो मॉनसून इस वक्त खराब है उसका आने वाले समय में आप क्या असर सोचते हैं कि होगा महंगाई पे?
देखिए, देश में फूड स्टॉक काफी पर्याप्त है और इसलिए मॉनसून की वजह से थोड़ा असर पड़ सकता है। कहीं ड्राउट होगा तो वो असर पड़ेगा, लेकिन फूड स्टॉक पर्याप्त होने की वजह से मुझे उस प्रकार की चिंताएं नहीं है। अब इन्फ्लेशन अपने आप में चिंता का विषय रहता है, मतलब मॉडरेट भी रहे तो उससे तो केवल यही लगता है कि अधिक दर पे नहीं बढ़ रही, कम दर पे बढ़ रही है। थोड़ी सी तो बढ़नी स्वाभाविक है, ग्रोथ के साथ बढ़ती है, उसका एक परिणाम होता है। मैं कोई आंकड़ा नहीं फिक्स करने वाला हूं, लेकिन बहुत तेजी से बढ़े और लोगों की आमदनियों की तुलना में अधिक तेजी से बढ़े तो स्वाभाविक है, अपने आप में चिंता का विषय है।
Sir, I am Shishir from Hindu Business Line. My question is related with corporate affair industry. We are seeing dropping of many of the independent directors from the board of Maharatna and Navaratna. Don't you think that it will affect the corporate governance in these companies?
Well, I think the shareholders of any company, including a public sector, if it's a company, are entitled to the directors whom they feel are adequately qualified and whom they have confidence in. That's a procedural question.
Here, sir. Sir, in GDP data, in GDP data, the growth in demand hasn't picked up. It is stagnant at 6% in first quarter. So, will we see some more measures by the government to propel demand? And you said that you will try to evolve a consensus with state chief ministers and finance ministers on GST. Will you be agreeable to their demand that compensation to them be put in Constitution Amendment Bill and petroleum and alcohol be taken out of GST?
See, obviously when we try through even our fiscal measures to put more money in the hands of the taxpayers, and that's one of the efforts we've made in the budget, that was obviously one of our strategies. As far as the GST is concerned and its final shape, the empowered committee has, with regard to certain items, expressed an opinion that they be kept out. Now, too many items can't be kept out because then the larger object itself could get defeated. So this is precisely one of the issues in which we are in discussion with some of the states. I went to Calcutta. I had a discussion with the finance minister and the chief minister of West Bengal. I've already discussed it with the finance minister of Gujarat and with one or two other states which have some issues in their mind. I do intend discussing with them. And I'm sure we'll be able to move towards some kind of a larger consensus. The states almost unanimously expect that the promised CST compensation must be paid to them. The same had not been provided for. We are also clear that we'll have to start the process of paying them that CST compensation. Because if we want the trust of the states in a central government, it could be of any party, then the word given to them has to be honored. And conscious of that fact, we'll try and take some steps as soon as our affordability itself improves. You see, this depends on what shape the litigation in the Supreme Court further takes. The silver lining in the judgment is that it moves the system towards a fairer methodology of allocation of resources. It takes away from the government the power of arbitrary allocation of resources. I think that's a silver lining. But we can't allow the fate of the coal blocks to hang in midair. They need to be utilized for the purpose for which coal is utilized, and therefore whether the existing allottees are to use it or it is to be put to a fresh allotment process, I do hope that this decision doesn't linger on. The future fate of these is decided expeditiously. I can't give a time to the court.
Sir, you said that you are confident insurance bill will be passed in the winter session. So we saw in the monsoon session the opposition party could not really get it introduced in Rajya Sabha. So have they relented with your talks? Can you throw some light if they have relented from their stand since then?
No, I can't say it's before.
Also, sir, 1 minute. And also, I heard in one of the interviews you said that we can go to the joint session if this does not come through. But then what I can understand is that if the insurance bill is not passed by one house, we cannot really have a joint session. So how do you really you're going to tackle this issue?
Well, I don't think we'll have to go so far in this case. I am reasonably confident because many political parties which have mooted the idea of this bill in the past can't have any serious reservation against it. I would have been happy if they had altered it on the suggestions they were making there and then, but since the Parliament wanted it to be visited by a select committee, we agreed. I do see a positive attitude in some of the principal opposition parties.
Sir, over here. Sir, you are also Defence Minister. How worrying is this ceasefire violations which are going on? Because even today a Jawan has been killed. Secondly, sir, there appears to be a new idea or a new policy on blacklisting. If you could tell us, blacklisting of firms in the Defence Ministry. You have already made some points about Finmechanica. Thirdly, sir, one other point. Is there, I think your ministry appears to be keen on investments, Japanese investments, in the Northeast and Jammu and Kashmir. Can you tell us about that?
You see, your third question I won't answer because the Prime Minister's visit is on. Let the outcome of the visit decide that. The incursions taking place at the border, both at the LOC and the international border, are extremely serious. They are provocative. But for this incident today where a Jawan has been killed, in the last 2 days, at least at the LOC, which the Indian Army looks after the discussion of the two DGMOs, we had hoped things would be better. And these are creating an environment which has not been conducive to the relationship of the two countries. But as I've said earlier, both the Indian Army at the LOC and the BSF at the international border are fully alert and are responding to every situation. As far as the blacklisting is concerned, the issue has been discussed at length within the Defence Ministry. There are a large number of firms that have been blacklisted. Now that upholds the consideration of probity, but that narrows our buying options. And when it narrows your buying options, it can affect security preparedness. And therefore, the issue had been referred to the Attorney General for his opinion, and thereafter the Law Ministry has considered it. We have eased it to the extent that where there have been 3 circumstances in which the easing has taken place, and they broadly are around the fact where supplies have already been made and you need servicing of those equipments. You need spare parts. Now can you turn around and say we blacklisted you, now you won't take spare parts from you? As a result of which the supplied equipment itself becomes redundant. Similarly, where bids have come in and there are other eligible bidders, so the others are opened and the blacklisted is not open. It is in those circumstances, 3 sets of circumstances, keeping a balance between the security consideration and the considerations of probity and enforcement of contracts, that the decision has been taken there.
Hello? Sorry.
Now the principle is common, that where supplies have already been made in the past and now you need spare parts, it's a universal principle. Can you say I won't use the equipment because I won't take it from a blacklisted company?
Sorry, my name is Penny McCram from AFP. I just wondered, some of the analysts are saying that it's a great result for the first quarter, but they say it's about as good as it's going to get. They feel that the problems of the monsoon and the fiscal deficit, and I know you've sounded encouraging today, but I wondered if you what would be your response to them in thinking that this may be it as far as the quarterly growth figures, as far as how good we're going to see it.
My response to them would be that India is changing for the better. So let's not let's see silver linings rather than any gloom in situation to come.
Sir, Ujjwal Narayan this side from Newsrise. Sir, as you said that you are expecting more on account of disinvestment, and tax collection is also expected to move. So in the first half, the government has reduced its borrowing by 16,000 crores. Do you feel that if situation move in the same direction in which it is moving, government will borrow less than what it is said in the budget?
I won't hazard a guess, because I've already answered the first question saying that what happens in the first quarter may not represent the annual pattern. So we'll face that situation as it comes.
Sir, Arup from Financial Express. You had said in Parliament that the government has not yet formed a firm view on GAR, and that you might take a fresh view on GAR after the parliamentary session. So have you done that? Does the government have a new fresh view on GAR?
Yes, I have started taking a presentation on this, and the issue is seriously under consideration. But I can't tell you what will happen to it and from when.
Sir, secondly, sir, you had talks with the finance ministry officials, had talks with S&P, and they're also scheduled to have talks with other rating agencies. In light of yesterday's numbers, are there indications that the rating agencies might upgrade their rating status on India?
This has been our consistent position that we don't predict what the rating agencies will do. this has also been our consistent position that the Indian economy is on the upward trajectory, and this is being noticed globally, and therefore I'm quite confident that the rating agencies will also notice this.
Mr. Jaitley, on the issue of coal, has there been any assessment in the finance ministry on, the uncertainty following the Supreme Court verdict? Will it have any effect on growth in the next quarter? Because the infrastructure sector, the core sector is going to get hit.
You see, if it...
And secondly, also on infrastructure, in the case of roads, 3 days back, I think the cabinet had okayed, the council minister had okayed that the road ministry could take any form of contracting. And Mr. Gadkari has been speaking in favor of EPC, whereas finance ministry has been more, speaking of PPPs.
You see, I'll indicate to you. As far as the judgment is concerned, I've already said. Obviously, if the resource can't be utilized, its adverse impact is inevitable, and therefore we hope that this uncertainty doesn't continue for a long time. As far as the road sector is concerned, it's in a challenging situation because a number of tenders in the environment of the economy which had existed in the country are going unresponded. Not a single person was bidding in what was otherwise being considered at one stage as a highly successful sector. And therefore, a certain amount of flexibility has been given to the ministry concerned so that the sector again starts moving. Well, since we have better figures, I think every Indian is entitled to smile.
Sir, sir, this is Mukesh Kaushik from United News of India, this side, sir. Sir, in the last 10 years of UPA rule, there was a common allegation that the Prime Minister is very weak and even said that he was being remote controlled. Now this allegation has reversed in your tenure of 3 months that Prime Minister is too strong, and your opponents are saying that there is over-centralization. How do you react to these kind of allegations?
Well, I've been asked this question in the last 1 or 2 days. See, this whole debate is not about over-centralization or weak. For instance, I look after different departments in the government, and the extent of decentralization that we enjoy is very large. Now, all these decisions we are taking in the Defense Ministry or what we do in the Finance Ministry are decisions taken in the ministry itself. Of course, important decisions are cleared with the Prime Minister or the PMO. But certainly, if you have a very active Prime Minister, along with this decentralized authority which has been given to us, there will be an element of accountability. स्वाभाविक है, अगर पेट्रोल की तरह डीजल के भी मार्केट से लिंक हो जाते हैं, जब मार्केट के बराबर आ जाते हैं तो फिर वो बाजार के हिसाब से चलेंगे। अगर बाजार घटता है तो वो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कीमतें घटेंगी तो वो भी घटेंगे, बढ़ेंगी तो बढ़ेंगे।
सर अखिलेश
लेकिन वो 50 पैसे वाला सिस्टम का तो फिर औचित्य नहीं रह जाएगा।
सर इधर से सर अखिलेश शर्मा एनडीटीवी से सर सर प्रधानमंत्री ने लाल किले से घोषणा की थी कि योजना आयोग की जगह एक नई संस्था बनाई जाएगी, लेकिन जो कांग्रेस शासित राज्य हैं उन्होंने ये कहा है कि उनसे भी इस पर सलाह मशविरा होना चाहिए क्योंकि ये फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर के साथ छेड़छाड़ हो सकती है। तो क्या सभी राज्यों के साथ भी सलाह मशविरा होगा कोई भी फैसला करने से पहले?
मुझे लगता फैसला तो हो चुका है, वैकल्पिक ढांचा क्या होगा उसके ऊपर निश्चित रूप से सबकी राय ली जा सकती है।
Sir, I am from Indian Observer. Sir, when your party came to power, people had, and especially common people had lot of hopes regarding the household things. But sir, they are still increasing, like we meet common people, they are saying the prices differences, they are bothered about household thing. And they are saying it is the same what it was in UPA government and it is the same what is your government, what are the rates, like. I cannot see any...
If everything is the same, that means they haven't increased.
No. So sir, they wanted it to be reduced and have...
Okay.
अच्छा सर पाकिस्तान के हॉस्टाइल रवैये को देखते हुए और लगातार जिस तरीके का माहौल बना हुआ है दोनों देशों के अंदर, क्या भारत की सरकार पुरानी मनमोहन सरकार द्वारा की गई आर्थिक संबंधों के बारे में जो रियायतें दी गई थी उनकी समीक्षा करेगी? क्या भारत की नई सरकार ट्रेड एंड बिजनेस रिलेशंस की पूरी स्थिति की पुनर्समीक्षा करने की कोशिश करेगी या ऐसा कोई विचार है?
देखिए, ऐसा जो विचार बनेगा और कोई निर्णय होगा तो आपको बता दिया जाएगा। ऐसी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के दौरान निर्णय लेना मेरे लिए थोड़ा कठिन होगा इस विषय पर।
Sir, I'm Ruchi Bhatia from ET Now. It was given to believe that your government is going to be, not populist at all. However, key decisions have to be taken on the LPG subsidy, the diesel, the subsidy on kerosene and all. Also, you've launched the Jan Dhan Yojana, but many say it is done at the cost of banks. They are the ones who are bearing the cost. What do you have to say on that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, the banks are not going to be bearing the cost. And there is already a separate financial mechanism with regard to which the Department of Financial Services later will, on another day, will completely independently brief you. We've gone into this whole matter. I've seen some write-ups. This is not accurate. Now, as far as the other subsidies are concerned, because of a large population living below poverty levels, some element of subsidies will remain. But then the subsidies may have to be rationalized and their procedures will have to differ. It's precisely keeping this in mind that we've requested the Expenditure Management Commission to come out with at least these part of the recommendations expeditiously, so that in the course of this year we can start acting on them. देखिए, ऑलरेडी पहला निर्णय सरकार का था कि जो एसआईटी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कही थी और जो इस पे कई सिफारिशें दे रही है और उनकी कुछ रिकमेंडेशन सुप्रीम कोर्ट को दी गई हैं, जैसे ही उसके कोई निर्देश आता है या हमें वो मिलती है तो क्या कार्रवाई उसमें हो सकती है हम देखेंगे। उसमें तो ऑलरेडी कार्रवाई हो रही है एसआईटी के द्वारा।
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Now I would request the media people to come for refreshment on the ground floor in the press launch. All of you are requested to join for refreshment.